Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Good morning. Star Insurance. How can I help?
Oh, good morning. I'm calling to make an insurance claim. It's for damage to my house.
All right. I'm just going to get a few details down first. What's your name, please?
It's Greg Williams.
Okay, thank you. And what's your policy reference, please?
Is that the long number with the letters in the middle?
That's right.
It's 05443 CHI 771.
Okay. Right, yes. I've got your details on the computer now. So, can I confirm your address? According to our records, you live at 102 Market Street in Northbridge. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right, good. And the last thing I need to check, what's the best phone number to get you on? Is it the number you're calling on now?
No, I'm calling from work. Let me give you my mobile phone number. It's 018 669 925.
Thanks. So, can you give me a description of the damage? When did the incident occur?
Sunday the 17th of June.
I see. And what was the cause of the incident? How did the damage happen?
Right. No one was home at the time, which was fortunate, I suppose. There was a big storm, and I guess it blew down one of the trees at the back of our garden, and it smashed through the window in our daughter's bedroom.
Yes, a good thing you were all out. So, have you got the window fixed?
Not yet.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
All right. And so, apart from the window, what are you claiming for?
Okay, like I said, it was my young daughter's room. Anyway, right below the window is her desk. That's all right, but she left her glasses on it, and they got really badly scratched. She'll need a new pair. Luckily, she hadn't left her headphones there, like she normally does.
Is there anything else?
Yes, because the window was broken, the rain got in. And what's really annoying is that, when was it? Just last month, we'd gone shopping and bought a carpet. We'd only had it for a couple of weeks, and it got soaked. We had to remove it.
Oh, dear. Are there any other items you'd like to claim for?
Yes. I suppose we should be grateful that the rain didn't reach her computer, but when the tree came through the window, it tore a hole through the curtain that was hanging there.
Okay, I'm making a note of all this.
And one more thing I need to claim for.
Yes, go on.
We've had some repairs done already for a door we can't open.
To the back of the house?
No, it's for the garage. The tree hit that as well.
Okay, so have you contacted a professional builder yet?
Yes, it's the same builder we always use. Do you want his name?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's Stephen Honeywell. Honeywell.
All right. Now, apart from damage to the house itself, what else do you think the builder will be looking at? Because we're going to need photographs.
Oh, yes. Well, he'll be putting up a fence for us between our house and the neighbours, because the one we've got now was smashed by the tree. So I'll take some pictures before he does the work.
Please do that. And then you can send them in with your claim.
That is the end of part 1. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to part 1.
Now turn to section 2. Section 2. You will hear a talk by the organizer of an information day about training courses for workers in hotels, restaurants, and other parts of the hospitality industry. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Morning, everyone. My name is John. I've worked in the hospitality industry for 20 years, here and all around the world. I've done it all. Washing dishes in cafes, waiting tables, hotel work. I've been better at some of these roles than others, to be honest. But what I've always loved is the incredible variety of workmates I've had over the years. Today, I want to introduce some of the training courses available here at the college. So, today's program. This morning, there will be short presentations about different hospitality jobs. Then, this afternoon, there'll be workshops where you can explore these ideas in more detail. So, your first presentation is on restaurant service. Another session focuses on kitchen assistants who help the cooks in the kitchen. This is a great way to learning cooking skills. There's an amazing number of traditional techniques to learn. You'd be surprised how many top chefs in expensive restaurants started out as a kitchen assistant. But be warned, kitchen assistants arrive at work first and leave last. So think hard about whether you can cope with the commitment. The session about porters, cleaners, and dishwashers is a popular one. These positions are good for students especially because they require no experience. Dishwashers have to work late into the evening. No surprises there. A porter's role is more important than many people realize because guests' first impression are formed by the staff they meet on arrival. Cleaners will usually be doing shift work, which may or may not suit you depending on your situation. Another popular session looks at the role of the receptionist. This is a key role. You have to deal with every part of the hotel. So, having reception work on your CV or resume is often a good way of moving your career forward in the long run. But having said that, they can be challenging, you know, dealing with people from all around the world. You have to already be good at working under a lot of pressure. You can't work out how to do it on the job. For any of these jobs, you'll usually have an interview. So there's also a session on interview skills. Now, frankly, for the less skilled roles, the interview will be pretty quick. But for some of the jobs I've mentioned, the interview is just as important as it is in other types of employment. Basically, the key to coming across well is the same today as it was when I started 20 years ago. And the good thing is, it's not too difficult to develop these skills with a little training and rehearsal.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
Okay, then this afternoon we'll have the workshops. They'll be held in various classrooms around the college. So if you have a look at your college plan, I'll tell you where they're going to be. Now, at the moment, we're in the hall. You'll see it at the bottom of your plan. So if you want to go to the workshop on restaurant service, go out of the hall and turn right. Walk along to the office, and it's the classroom immediately next door to that. For kitchen hands, when you come out of the hall, you'll see the square in front of you. Cross to the other side of the square, and you'll see a block of 2 classrooms. You want the one on the left. Now, porters, cleaners, and dishwashers. You want to find a block of classes on the northern side of the college. There's a long block of classrooms, and you want the one at the eastern end. For the receptionist workshop, turn right out of the hall and go past the office. Then head up north between the 2 sets of classrooms. You'll come to the first end room on your left, and it's the classroom directly opposite that. For those of you who are wanting to brush up on your interview skills, there's an interview skills workshop. You see that on the western side of the square, there's a single large classroom. That's in there. Okay, now let's move on to look at.
That is the end of Section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear part of a seminar on ocean research given by a climate scientist. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Thanks to all of you for coming along today to hear about how the Robotic Float project is helping with ocean research. Well, first of all, we'll look at what a robotic float does and its use. So let's start with the device itself. It looks a bit like a cigar, and it's about 1.5 meters long. More importantly, it's full of equipment that's designed to collect data. So it can help us in building up a profile of different factors which work together within the world's oceans.
Sounds like a big project. Isn't it too big for one country to undertake?
That's quite true, but this project is a really good example of international cooperation. Over the last 5 years, scientists from 13 countries have been taking part in the project and launching floats in their area of ocean control. And next year, this number will rise to 14 when Indonesia joins the project.
That's impressive.
But let's move on to how floats work. The operational cycle goes like this. Each of the floats is dropped in the ocean from a boat at a set point and activated from a satellite. Then the float immediately sinks about 2,000 meters. That's 2 whole kilometers down in the water. It stays at this depth for about 10 days and is carried around by the currents which operate in the ocean at this level. During this time, it's possible for it to cover quite large distances, but the average is 50 kilometers.
So, what is it actually recording?
Well, at this stage, nothing. But as it rises to the surface, it collects all sorts of data. Most importantly, variations in salinity, that's salt levels, and the changes in temperature, a bit like underwater weather balloons. Then, when it gets back to the surface, all the data it's collected is beamed up to the satellite. After about 5 hours on the surface, the float automatically sinks, beginning the whole process again.
What happens to the data?
Well, the information is transferred direct to onshore meteorological stations, like our one in Hobart, and within 4 hours the findings can be on computers, and they can be mapped and analysed.
Before you hear the rest of the seminar, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30. You say you're building models of the world's ocean systems, but how are they going to be used? And more importantly, when?
Some of the data has already helped in completing projects. For example, our understanding of the underlying causes of El Niño events is being confirmed by float data. Another way we're using float data is to help us to understand the mechanics of climate change, like global warming and ozone depletion. That's part of an ongoing variability study, but the results are still a long way off. However, this is not the case with our ocean weather forecasting. Because we know from the floats what the prevailing weather conditions will be in certain parts of the ocean, we can advise the Navy on search and rescue missions. That's happening right now, and many yachtsmen owe their lives to the success of this project. In addition, the float data can help us to look at the biological implications of ocean processes.
Would that help with preserving fish stocks?
Yes, and advising governments on fisheries legislation. We're well on the way to completing a project on this. We hope it will help to bring about more sustainable fishing practices. We'll be seeing the results of that quite soon.
It sounds like the data from floats has lots of applications.
Yes, it does. It's also a powerful agricultural tool. If we were aware of what the weather would be like, say, next year, we could make sure that the farmers planted appropriate grain varieties to produce the best yield from the available rainfall.
That sounds a bit like science fiction, especially when now we can't even tell them when a drought will break.
I agree that this concept is still a long way in the future, but it will come eventually, and the float data will have made a contribution.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a lecturer talking on the topic of sustainability. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40 on page 7. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
This week's lecture on a scientific topic of current general interest is on sustainability. The term sustainability is not new. It was first coined in 1987 in a report for the United Nations World Commission on Environment and Development. Since then, however, the term has been applied to everything from cars to agriculture and even economics. My specific focus, in fact, derives from this problem. I want to analyze what seems to me to be the confusion that surrounds sustainability. That UN document defines sustainable development as development that allows both the present and all future generations to meet their needs. Here is the first myth. Sustainability is not simply about the environment, which may come as a surprise to you. In fact, the original definition says nothing about it at all. Sustainability is not about protecting the world around us. The original focus was on finding ways to help poor nations catch up with richer nations, which primarily meant giving them similar rights to natural resources, water, food, energy, the things that many of us take for granted. The consequence and ultimate goal was improving living standards for all. Another myth is that sustainability is a synonym for green, as in green movement, green products, etc., although there is some overlap between the terms. Green suggests a preference for natural living, for example. When you go shopping, products marketed as green imply the absence of high technology and mass manufacturing processes. Those groups who campaign for sustainability, we can call them the lobby for sustainability, acknowledge that the situation is desperate. The main problem, they state correctly, is time. With 6 billion people on the planet now, and 1 billion more expected in the next 30 years, only technology will be able to provide everyone with an acceptable and safe lifestyle. Electric cars, wind turbines, and solar cells are key examples of this. They make great use of renewable resources while emitting fewer noxious chemicals. Nuclear power, too, is something the sustainability lobby has come to accept, unlike most greens. And here's the third myth. It concerns the role of technology. Technology is not rejected as evil, but we should not overemphasize the role of technology either. Take electric cars, for example. Researchers are currently working on plans to electrify the world's car fleet. New technology is currently being developed to make better batteries, giving longer performance. But a better way of thinking is perhaps to have battery stations for drivers to use on roads. When the battery is getting low, they simply swap the old one for a fully charged one. In other words, new business thinking, not new technology, for a sustainable future. There are similarities in agriculture, where knowledge can be more productive than new technology. Agriculture uses up about 3/4 of the world's water. Some crops are very thirsty and require a lot of water. So many farmers who believe in sustainability are now planting crops like sunflowers and wheat instead of corn, which are happy with much less water. In terms of water consumption, one of the biggest problems is that our diet is changing. As countries develop and people become richer, they aspire to a diet with more meat. Now, admittedly, most of the new births that will take our population to over 6 billion are going to be born in countries with largely vegetarian diets. However, most of them will be born in the city, and this is where water consumption is highest. That introduces the topic for next week's lecture, and we will be discussing.
That is the end of Section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.